This is Rich Stroffolino, and you are listening to the Department of No. Pete Clay, CISO at Arion. I got to ask, let's start out the new year. What is your priority this week?
AI, AI, and AI. My team is implementing it, we're securing it, and we're figuring out what it all means.
Ooh, I think we may have an AI story or two. Maybe this is a tease. We'll find out how maybe these will impact your team. Fantastic. I like where your mind is at. And Chris Ray, Field CTO at GigaOM, what is your priority this week?
Hey, Rich. Hey, Pete. AI as well. I'm sorry, I'm not going to break the mold here. Just working on some automations, trying to get things done better, faster, all the things.
Stronger. Yeah, it's the classic Daft Punk problem. All right, producer Steve, we're about to start the show. Let's run that animation.
From the CISO series, it's Department of No.
Welcome indeed to the Department of No, your virtual Monday strategy meeting. Our sponsor for today is Hawks Hunt, Measurable Human Risk Reduction. Remember, you can get involved in our YouTube chat live. We broadcast every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern, or if you're into some legacy electronic communication, feedback at CISOseries.com to send some electronic mail. We've got about 30 minutes. We're going to dive in, but just a quick reminder that all the opinions expressed by our guests are in fact their own, not necessarily those of their employer, their friends, or family. We're going to start out with our No or No segment here. This is where we want your quick take. Is this something security professionals need to know about, need to be talking about with their teams, or is this more noise than signal? First up here, a Palo Alto AI warning. Last week's Chief Security Intel Officer Wendy Whitmore described AI agents as the new insider threat to companies for 2026. She describes it as a dilemma because CISOs and security teams are under a lot of pressure to deploy new technology. It's on everyone's priority list, as we all know. But at the same time, new AI applications create, some would say, a super user problem, chaining together access to sensitive applications and resources without security teams' knowledge or approval. Pete, I'm going to start with you. Do we need to know more about this, or is it a no thank you for you?
It's kind of a no thank you because this is something we dealt with about a year ago. One of the things we discovered as we were deploying AI is there are two precursor events you have to do first. Number one, you got to figure out what data is real within your organization. It's not as simple as you may think it is. And then number two, if you don't figure out your identity and access management stuff, doesn't matter what you call it, an insider threat, an external threat, whatever, you're just going to go down hard.
Chris, what about for you? Do you need to know a little more about this, or do you agree with Pete?
I'm going to say it's a no. Let's know a little bit more about this. The way I'm looking at it is, Pete, you guys are ahead of the curve. A lot of organizations that I talk to, they are still back where you were a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. We're speed running the same privileged access mistakes that we made with service accounts, but now they can read the web and your email, right? So kind of scary, right? But this is important to share because we're literally creating autonomous entities with super user privileges that can pivot across systems without human oversight. Security teams for years, we've been trying to implement least privilege, break down excessive permissions. AI agents threaten to undo all of that. So it's definitely, let's keep it top of mind. Let's talk about it. Let's find what unique situations are going to exist in your environment.
The first one to always remember is when you automate stupid, you get faster stupid. Right. And so
I was going to say, let's scale
that.
our technical and process debt. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I get it. I understand it, but I don't think those conversations, particularly putting it as an insider threat or something else, is nearly as helpful as understanding AI represents both threat and opportunity. Right. And you have to be able to manage that stuff effectively for your organization.
All right, next up here, OpenAI says prompt injection attacks against browser-based AI agents like ChatGPT Atlas may never be fully eliminated after internal red teaming uncovered a new class of attacks that can hijack agents during routine web workflows. This appears to be another chapter in a little book we like to call Cat and Mouse. Chris, I'm going to start with you here. Do you need to know a little more about this, or is this a no thank you for you?
I'm going to say it's a no. And I'm also going to tell you it's not a little book. It's a big book on injection, right?
It's a never-ending story, right?
Prompt injection is like SQL injection's final boss, except the database now talks back and it's got an opinion. So from my perspective, this is important because if OpenAI themselves is telling you we may never solve this problem. This may never be fully solvable. As a security architect, an engineer, as a leadership in a security organization, that's a reality that you have to face. There won't ever be a magical patch to fix for. You can't just cross your fingers and hope that you get there one day. Since prompt injection can't be solved at the model layer, teams must be layering controls. So input filtering, output validation, privilege separation, monitoring. How great would that be? No single control will cut through this problem.
Pete, what about you?
Absolutely need to know more. Let's also remember though, the web interface is only one of literally dozens of ways that you can interact with AI, right? So there are, in addition to everything that we just went through, there's also a lot of different architecture ways that you can manage some of these risks out. But I also completely agree. At this point, there appears to be no absolute solution that's coming down the pipe.
All right, next up here, Korean Air supplier attack. Korean Air disclosed a data breach on its in-flight catering and duty-free subsidiary. The airline says customer data was not impacted and that the leaked information appears limited to employee names and account numbers. This attack was conducted by the Klopp ransomware group and again points to the old third-party vendor problem, or in this case, a subsidiary, but I would classify that maybe in the same type of weakness here. Pete, for you, do you need to know a little more about this, or is this no thanks for you?
Always want to know more about third-party risks, right? 75% of our issues last year were caused by third-party suppliers. And so we're always trying to keep track of this. We're always talking to our vendors and our suppliers, as well as those companies that we are a vendor or supplier to. And so one of the things I really want to applaud here, though, is the open way in which the information was shared, right? Because too often, somebody thinks that hiding under a rock and not sharing the information is the way to handle it. Never works out well for them, or more importantly, their customers.
Chris, what about for you? Do you need to know a little more about this, or no thanks?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to say no thanks. While this reinforces the ongoing third-party risk problem, it's the way I see it, it's another data point in a well-understood problem. Not to say I'm minimizing the impact that third-party risk presents or minimizing the threat and the risks there, but it's not novel or pending a final solution, kind of like the AI injection, like we just talked about.
All right, and our last story in Know or No, Dark Spectre campaigns are exposed. A Chinese-linked threat actor called Dark Spectre has been running 3 malicious browser extension campaigns that impacted more than 8.8 million users across Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Opera. The campaigns use legitimate-looking extensions to hijack searches, commit ad fraud, and quietly collect sensitive corporate meeting data from platforms like Zoom, Google Meet, and Microsoft Teams, otherwise known as all of them as infrastructure for large corporate espionage. Is this know a little more, or no thanks for you, Pete?
This is know a lot more. Again, this is one of those things, since we use all of those platforms and our customers use all of those platforms. Again, we have to maintain those relationships as kind of a trusted party to our environments. Particularly as we dove into this one actually caused an alert and a response to make sure that we were clear or free and clear of this stuff kind of as it's rolling out. But it's something we're definitely keeping tabs on and monitoring as we go forward.
Chris, what about you? Know a little more, or no thanks on this one?
Know a little bit more. 8.8 million people just found out their browser extension wasn't helping them. It was helping Beijing, or, whatever finger you want to point there. This is important because browser extensions have become the new watering hole attack, right? Corporate espionage via meeting platforms. That's sophistication that I don't think most organizations are ready to handle. Teams need to understand that Zoom and your Microsoft Teams data, it's now a primary intelligence target, not just email, documents, and systems access.
Before we move on, shout out to CCL in the chat here, going back to our prompt injection story, saying, finding some more authorities that are agreeing perhaps with this assessment. The NCSC says prompt injections can't be fully mitigated, so focus on reducing impact instead, very much along the lines of what we were talking about here. And also pointing out that extensions are the new apps. Treat them as such. I would say extensions are even... that should have been the modus operandi, I think, for a while now with browser extensions, but a good point nonetheless there, CCL. Appreciate that. Before we move on to our wider discussion, have to spend a few moments now and thank our sponsor for today, Hawks Hunt. Traditional security training fails because it treats employees like the problem. Hawks Hunt treats them like the solution. AI-powered simulations mirror actual attacks hitting your inbox. Instant coaching turns mistakes into learning moments. Gamified rewards make security engaging. The result? Real behavior change that measurably reduces your risk. Thousands of companies trust Hawks Hunt to transform human vulnerability into human defense. Visit hawkshunt.com/CISO series to learn more. That's HOXHUNT.com/CISO series. All right, let's get into some of the nitty gritty here with our discussion. We're getting dirty here. Diesel generators and aircraft engines in high demand to power AI. The developers of data centers are now using aeroderivative turbines, which I'm going to try and use aeroderivative in a sentence this week, based on or made for jet engines, as well as diesel generators, to address a growing need for power to process AI technology. This is being done to counter the issue of supply chain shortages and wait times of up to 7 years to connect to the grid, as well as growing backlash over their impact on consumer utility bills. This power is needed for training and running of artificial intelligence models. A lot of power. You got to power all those GPUs somehow. As a result, local and federal regulators in the U.S. are starting to loosen the restrictions on the use of backup generators. They're even floating the idea of commandeering existing backup generators, such as those located behind many large stores and businesses, in order to support demand. Please leave the hospital ones alone. No one's putting that out there. Let's not jinx anything, okay? But this poses an issue of dependence, which I think is the interesting part here, an infrastructure problem as well as a geopolitical challenge. Falls in line with cloud, data centers, and crypto mining as being best suited to certain countries with either cold climates or cheap electricity or conveniently non-existent emission regulations. Chris, I'll start with you. As companies are becoming more dependent on AI, what's your take on this issue and this potential workaround, this kind of hack to get around accessing the power grid?
Yeah, I love creative solutions. I love them. Like I get excited when somebody comes to me with something really creative, or once every 10 years I come up with something that's worthy of being creative. But we're literally burning jet fuel to make our chatbots write our emails. If that doesn't scream unsustainable business model, I don't know what does. That's my my initial reaction. And then I revisited it, and that's my second reaction. It's just like, I don't think this is good. AI companies are trying to solve a problem the same way a teenager, my kid, solves his problem, solves his homework, right? Wait until the last minute, do whatever it takes. Consequences be damned. That's not good. The 7-year grid wait times, like you talked about, that means we're building AI infrastructure on borrowed time and maybe on borrowed generators. That's new kind of technical debt.
Yeah, like infrastructure debt in a way that we don't often talk, like on such a wide scale that we don't often consider that. Pete, what about for you? Like, I mean, how did this story strike you? The implications for dependence on this? Like, I'm curious where your mind's at with this.
It's absolutely critical for us, but one of the things that we're really tracking closely is there's now new generations of models that require far less energy to actually be able to do useful things, right? And in some ways, what we're seeing with the let's call it the first generation or the first wave of these things, it's kind of like using Plato or Aristotle to do your bookkeeping, right? You're using such massive power, as Chris said, to write your emails, right? I agree with him. That's actually tech debt that's not sustainable. But the new generation of models that are coming out that are far more sustainable from both a training and a power, maybe they're not Aristotle, maybe they can only write your emails, but that seems to me to be a trend and a path to really pay attention to.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
I was just gonna say there's a couple angles on this, business continuity. If your cloud AI services depend on diesel generators and repurposed jet engines, what's the availability guarantee when there's a fuel supply disruption? How does that now impact your business operations? These are things that a lot of organizations, unless you're in the industrial, the IoT, or fuel and gas, if you want to go there, oil and gas, these are not things that they're thinking about. This creates geographic concentrations of AI capabilities in regions with power availability. That's a new single point of failure, right? I mean, there's like weird things coming out of this very creative idea that unfortunately I think will take a long time to pick apart.
Yeah, and Pete, to your point, I think there is the issue of no one was prepared when like GPT-3 like just blew up and became like mainstreamed like instantly overnight, and then started this kind of LLM arms race to becoming the fastest, growing app for ChatGPT and all the others that are following on with it, to the point where it was like to your point of these more specialized models that could be trained with much fewer resources on like every level, that it's like they invented like a Swiss Army knife and everyone was like, great, let's build buildings with that like immediately. And instead of being like, what if we just had an impact driver, or what if we had what if we actually had specialized tools for these? And I think that is a more hopeful take on a lot of kind of the AI infrastructure that I hadn't really considered, but it makes a lot of sense, right? Whereas we find these specific use cases, we don't need to literally boil the ocean to create the next most powerful, general purpose LLM. We just need email bot, that has 50 billion parameters as opposed to 100 trillion, and needs petabytes of memory to train it and stuff like that. So I like giving us a little hope there. That makes me happy here. All right, our next story here. Oh yeah, Steve, jump in.
Yeah,
there.
I want to just add one more thing here. Every once in a while we get a story on the show about IoT or OT and the vulnerabilities that seem to disappear into the mist when it comes to any kind of lurking malware inside these machines we don't pay much attention to, like generators that sit behind buildings. So there seems to be a direct connection here between dependence on using both generators and aircraft turbine engines with the fact that they too have computers in them. And it's one of the overlooked areas of vulnerabilities that may have a significant impact when they stop working all of a sudden. So just wanted to add that.
Yeah, that's wow. Yes. Well, okay. So Steve, now, see, I was leaving on hope, and now you've brought me down to the grubby world of IoT security, which is a hopeless death spiral I will never get out of for the rest of the week. So thank you for that, producer Steve. No, really great point, though.
My pleasure.
This one of the many services he offers. Our next story here, Coupang's coupons. This follows up on a recent data breach impacting almost 34 million people. Coupang, often dubbed Korea's Amazon, has announced a compensation program equivalent to 1.17 billion US dollars, which will be delivered in the form of purchase vouchers for impacted users. Coupang plans to notify users through text message regarding the voucher redemption process. It's kind of interesting to see an online retailer of this size go for the whole store credit only approach to an event that potentially could have long-term impacts for its credibility with a lot of customers. But no matter, I'm curious for either of you. Pete, I'm going to start with you here. Does your spidey sense tingle somewhat at the notion of 34 million SMS messages going out to customers saying, hey, redeem your coupon here, given the amount, how deluged we all are? I'm assuming it's the same in South Korea, with spam opportunities and scammers. Like where's your mind at with this?
I think it goes to a couple different places, but Chris, we can pick an over under as to the amount of fraud that this is going to cause.
Yes.
Right. This is not a well thought out approach. Right. It actually goes back to the point that Chris made earlier around identification and authentication that applies to your customers as well. And so 34 million SMS messages or whatever the number ends up being, you can probably multiply that by 5, 8, 10x for the number of things that'll say, hey, come to this website and just, redeem your coupon here, right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think maybe the only, fraud that we will see on this scale was maybe the federal COVID giveaways of money and things like that. So
yeah, that's actually a good benchmark for that. Yeah, Chris, I mean, you're kind of in the same thoughts here, but any other angles we need to think about with this?
Yeah, so I'll expand on it a little bit. Coupang just trained an entire nation to click on SMS links about data breaches, right? Like every Nigerian prince is high-fiving each other right now. They're so excited. This just opened up the floodgates to South Korea. But, on the incident response side, because I spent a lot of time in my career working IR, this is definitely an anti-pattern. This represents everything not to do when communicating breach remediation. Organizations need to understand how their IR communications can create secondary attack vectors exactly like this. The notification mechanism in this case is now a part of Coupang's attack surface. So you've just made your job even harder. And getting back to something you said, Pete, I agree with you on one part of it, but the other part is maybe you're wrong and maybe I'm wrong and a lot of people are wrong too. You said this wasn't very well thought out. I'm afraid, what if it was really well thought out, but marketing overruled security?
That's the interesting angle here, right? Because like the presumably the comms for this would fall within some kind of response plan, right? Like that is in the toolbox, right? To be like, if this happens, we take all these technical steps on the business side. We would, contact any relevant regulators. We would then, once we have a blast radius, et cetera, notify impacted customers, right? Like this is not the first time they've thought about this. That's kind of where my mind was at, that this was presumably part of a playbook, and it still seems easily problematic. This
Yeah, it's like corporate en masse gaslighting in a way, right? Don't click suspicious links unless we tell you to do it.
I got to ask though, would you rather have a potentially shady looking SMS offering you $30 gift card to your Korea's Amazon, or would you rather have another 2 years of free credit monitoring? That is my question for both of you. Which would be preferable in this instance?
I was going to say, I mean, IR is advanced to the point now in the States where you don't even get the free credit monitoring, right? It's just, hey, we lost your stuff. We're really sorry if it's inconvenient. Wish you well. Hey, by the way,
hearty pat on the back and a terse head nod is what you get.
By the way, we're having a sale next Tuesday. Come by the store. I mean, that's kind of the same level of stuff.
All right, and our last story here, Sedgewick confirms New Year's Eve cyber incident. The claims administration company has confirmed that its government-focused subsidiary is dealing with a cybersecurity incident. Sedgewick provides claims and risk management services to federal agencies like DHS, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Customs and Border Protection, Citizenship and Immigration Services, the Department of Labor, and, of course, CISA. The Trident Locker ransomware game has claimed responsibility. Sedgewick stresses that its government solutions arm is segmented from the rest of its business, and that no wider Sedgewick systems or data were impacted. So, Chris, I'll start with you on this. It's nice to know that the government solutions arm is segmented from the rest of the business. I'm assuming there's a regulation that requires it to be so, and that there was no wider impact. But its clients are not exactly mom and pop operations. A lot of sophisticated and large organizations there. I can't imagine DHS accepting either the Coupang coupon or some free credit monitoring here. What are your thoughts when you see something like this?
So the first thing I thought of, because I was alive and around for this when it happened. It's not that long ago for most of us, but I think a lot of people that are new in the industry don't really remember it or think of it. Sedgewick says their government arm is segmented from the rest of their business. That's cool. But, so was Target's HVAC company. We know exactly how that went. I think segmentation has become the new encrypted at rest, right? It's a defensive statement that means a lot less than it sounds.
Pete, what about you? I mean, does this seem to maybe have some smoke? There's fire for you, or does the announcement that it's segmented hold any water for you?
I thought Chris was going to go right back to HB Gary. I thought Chris was going right back to all of those. And it's a playbook we've all heard before that doesn't mean anything, right? It's, fundamentally, it just comes down to, it's almost a non sequitur statement. Something bad happened, nothing to see here. Let's all move on. Again, going back to the previous point, do they get free credit monitoring? I mean, what's the outcome here? And just saying, well, we lost this. Okay, show me an environment where you only stored that and not something far more interesting.
So,
yep. It's segmentation theater, right? We need to be asking, as we're doing this third-party risk assessment, let's understand what it means to be segmented. Is that network? Is that data? Or is it business process? Is it all of them? Is it two of them? What exactly does that mean? And then I don't know if you're ready to run away from this, Rich, but I was going to say, to kind of end on a high note, like you wanted to with the prompt injection side of things. I'll give you a little bit here, and maybe that will happen. I thought about this, and like, what can we do to feel better about this in the future?
Yes.
Let's talk about tactics. We know holiday attacks are increasing because they work, right? So your IR plans must account for skeleton crew periods, and you must recognize you've got plans ready for when people are on vacation. It's Christmas Eve, whatever the deal is. You're just as vigilant, maybe not as well staffed, but you're just as vigilant as you are in the middle of June or whenever the case may be. We know attackers are optimizing for defender weaknesses, not just technical vulnerabilities. We need to keep that top of mind.
I like that. Some positive, like that. I guess that was my only other thought with this story is what, if you're a non-government customer, right, of Sedgewick, or a non-government client, whatever you want to call yourself, like what is your take? Should you act as if constantly zero trust, right? Like just assume that you will be impacted by this in some way, like as CCL said in our chat, not impacted yet. Like how do you take that information as someone you're receiving this non sequitur assurance that your data was not impacted? I'm curious, like how do you discuss that with your security team?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. I mean, CCL also says, it depends what you mean by segmented. Segmented what?
The cloud, a database, a company, the company itself. Yeah, that's the two sides of that. Yeah.
This may be the marketing department again overruling everything.
It feels a lot like their announcement that, hey, it wasn't the government stuff. It's just
Right.
everybody else.
Right.
Don't worry about it. It's like thoughts and prayers for you guys. Hey, do your best.
Okay. But see, Chris, I appreciate your attempt to get us out on the positive note. We as we start the new year, let's make that the vibe here on the Department of No. When we can, let's end with a little positivity here. But we're also going to end with a little bit of advice for today as we close out today's stand-up. I'm curious, Pete, I'll start with you. Is there any piece of advice from the news that you could pull out to maybe share with the audience, or something that you'll take back to your team?
The biggest thing and the biggest stuff that's coming is we're going to see the overlapping wave of AI followed almost immediately by quantum computing, right? And the interesting part of all of these conversations, and particularly a lot of the stuff that Chris went through, if you don't fix your identity and you don't manage your environments and build the defense in depth and everything else, those overlapping waves are going to swamp the boat almost no matter what you do. So now is really the grace time to get the house in order, right, and move forward, because AI is happening faster, quantum's now happening faster, and it's going to be a very, very interesting near future.
Quantum will come like a thief in the night is kind of what I'm waiting for here. Chris, what about you? Is there any piece of advice from the news from today that you can pull out here?
I got a bunch of things banging around in my head, but it kind of, maybe it's because I'm in an automation mood this week, but we're automating faster, right? We're automating faster than we're securing, though. That's a problem. So whether it's AI agents or super user, with it super user access, or the unfixable prompt injection problem, supply chain blind spots, millions of people installing corporate espionage disguised as a browser extension. That's a pretty clear pattern. We keep choosing speed and convenience over fundamentals, then acting surprised when the fundamentals come back to bite us. The companies winning at security aren't the ones moving fastest. They're the ones who remember that access control, least privilege, defense in depth aren't optional. They're just the things you need to do to keep operating securely.
Well, thank you both, Peter Clay, the CISO over at Arion, and Chris Ray, the field CTO over at GigaOM. Thank you both so much for being on the show. We'll have links to your LinkedIn in our show notes if people want to give you a follow, because you made the show amazing. Love the insight, love the attempts at positivity, producer Steve aside. And this was fantastic. We'll have to have you both on very, very soon. Thanks also to our sponsor for today, HoxHunt, Measurable Human Risk Detection. Remember, Remember, you can send us your feedback at any time, feedback@csoseries.com. I'm not going to read it anytime. I'm going to wait till normal business hours to read it. Don't ask me to read it at 1 a.m., but I will for sure read it. And you can send it anytime. There's no time gate on that. Join us again next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern for another edition of the Department of No. To register for that and just to follow everything that we're up to, head on over to YouTube, subscribe to the CISO Series YouTube channel, and make sure if you click a bell for notifications, I'm told something happens. But anyway, 4 p.m. Eastern every Monday. Set that calendar appointment or go to CISOseries.com and look at our events page. We will see you next Monday, but in the meantime, stay tuned to Cybersecurity Headlines. For myself, for our glorious producer, Steve Prentice, for the big boss man, David Spark, and the rest of the CISO Series, here's wishing you and yours to have a super sparkly day.
Cybersecurity headlines are available every weekday. Head to CISOseries.com for the full stories behind the headlines.